My name is Mark Sikma. I'm one of the pastors of Matthias's Lot Church in St. Charles, and our sending church was Two Rivers. St. Charles is very unique in that you have all sorts of socioeconomic backgrounds that are here. You have a solid age demographic that varies because of the collegiate aspect. And so we've gone all in reaching the community here and have certainly been invested in the long game. That's what we believe most. I believe most that to reach a community, it's going to be birthed in prayer, and it's going to be driven with a long game perspective. And so over the 20 years, God's done some humbling and gracious things here for sure. I would say one of the greatest things that happened in Jason and I's beginning was that we were willing just to say, yes, Lord. We were willing to submit to the Lord, even at times over wisdom and conventional wisdom.
My name is Jason Zelmer, and I am currently planting Antioch Church. And about 16 years ago, I was sent out from Matthias's Lot. I was 24 and Mark was 25 whenever we planted Matthias's Lot together. And I was at Matthias for about 4 years. During the end of that time, I was living in Wentzville, and we were leading a lot family. And our lot family continued to grow to 30, 40, 50 people in our home. And we just really began to wrestle with, is God calling us to plant a church here in our community? And so we planted a church called Piney Ridge Church in Wentzville, and I was there for 7 years, and then was sent from there to plant a church in Winfield called Redemption Road. Spent 4 years in Winfield planting that church, and then just a few years ago, I left there, led a residency at North Road Church for a season, and now I'm planting a church called Antioch, which is in the community of Troy, Missouri. When we want to think about our lives having significance and our lives having impact, if you're going to live your life to build your thing, one of the stories I like to tell is just think about your church in 20 years. If your church grows by 100 people every year for 20 years, you'll reach 2,000 people, which is awesome. I mean, you'd be a huge church, right? But if your church was to focus on multiplication instead of addition, and you sent out 20 people every year, and those churches continued to send out 20 people every year for 20 years, you wouldn't reach 2,000 people, you would reach 10 million people with the gospel. And so if we want our lives to have impact, if we truly want them to be used for the glory of God in the most meaningful way that they can, then when we just do the math makes sense that we would focus our hearts more towards multiplication and sending than to the work of adding and growing.
My name is Kevin Wright. I'm the lead pastor at August Gate Church, and we were sent out by Matthias's Lot Church. From the beginning of August Gate, our founding pastor, my best friend, Noah Oldham, led us to be a church planting church. Multiplication has always been in our DNA, partly because we were sent out by Matthias's Lot. Matthias planted Piney Ridge Church and August Gate Church when they were still a relatively small church, and so it's always been a part of who we are. In fact, my family and I are here because of that multiplication, that sending DNA, because in 2012, we planted August Gate Metro East on the Illinois side of the river when August Gate was still less than 100 people. And so it's led to us having this beautiful part in the sending journey, the church planting journey for so many other churches. We were able to send out Mike Bird and Faith Community Bible. We were able to send out Raiden Hollis and Red Hill Church. We were able to send out most recently John DeLuca and the Well Community Church. And so church planting, multiplication, sending has always been a part of our story, and it always will be. If a pastor came to me struggling with the idea of multiplication because they don't want to lose quality leaders, first I would say I understand, completely get that. Living in a military community, that's been really hard for me over the years, but God's grown me and really shown me a lot. One of the big things that He's shown me is that these people who come into our church for 2 years, maybe 3 years, maybe 4 years, we have the privilege of playing a part in their discipleship journey, of preparing them to go and be disciples in another place, make disciples in another place, and maybe even plant a church in another place. At the end of our journey, we will be able to say that we've been able to send, we've been able to multiply disciples all over the world, and that's a privilege that only God can give us.
My name is Michael Bird, and I get to be pastor at Faith Community Bible Church, and we were sent out by August Gate Church. So Faith Community Bible Church, we launched almost 9 years ago, specifically in the urban inner city context. That's our heartbeat. We know that that's where God has called us to. Our context is predominantly African American in an area where there's high crime, drugs, prostitution, many things of that sort. And our hope is that we will see Christ made known, not only in that context, but contexts just like it. A year and a half ago, we sent out Lawrence Baker. It was a guy that's been in my life for well over 20 years, poured into me in so many different ways. We had partnered together. He was our associate pastor, and we just thought that we was gonna ride in the sunset, reaching the lost, making disciples in our context. But God called him somewhere else. And it was so hard. I cried, I was frustrated, but now we get to see how God is using him in Ferguson, Missouri. And it's great to see how the Lord is now stirring his heart for multiplication even where he is. And his people are on board with multiplication as well.
My name is Raiden Hollis, and I planted Red Hill Church in Edwardsville, Glen Carbon, Illinois, and my sending church was August Gate Church. Red Hill Church was planted in 2015, and we actually launched on the campus of Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville because we were partnered with Nick Volkening, who would become our first church planter eventually and was a college student at the time. If a pastor came up to me and said, I'm really interested in cultivating a sending culture, but I'm worried about the effect of losing great leaders, I think what I would say to him is, those aren't your leaders. You don't have them. You don't get to keep them. They belong to the Lord, and you're responsible for stewarding those leaders, for loving them and helping them fulfill the mission for which God made them. Some of them are made to stay, but some of them are made to send. The first church plant that we sent out was New City Church. We sent Nick and Aaron Volkening to Champaign-Urbana in 2019 to plant that church. Following that, we sent out Redemption Community Church to Belleville, and then Gateway Church to Mount Vernon, Illinois, and most recently, we got to send out Jacob and Mackenzie Goble to plant Rooted Community Church in Lebanon, Illinois.
My name is Jacob Goble. Our church's name is Rooted Community Church, and we were sent out by Red Hill Church. We planted Rooted Community Church in the fall of 2022, and we have planted ourselves in a small rural community, a town of about 4,500 people. But what's unique about our context is we have an influx of military in our city, and so we have those that are currently serving, those that have retired from the Air Force that have chosen to live in Lebanon, but we also have McKendree University. And so many areas of focus for us, but we see, especially just some college students that have come to our small town from all around the world that we get to minister to. We've never operated under the assumption that we could lose too much when we multiply. We have a realization that multiplication hurts. For me personally, I look at the way that we launched our church. I launched with two of my best friends. At some point, they're not going to be a part of our church because we're going to send them out. And that's going to hurt in a deep way for me, and I have to understand and be able to celebrate that as we develop them and send them out, we are multiplying not only ourselves, but the kingdom.
My name is Daniel Williamson. I'll be planting Citizens Church in the fall of 2026 in the Wentzville area, sent by Matthias Lot Church. I think Matthias has done a phenomenal job of not just emphasizing the importance of multiplication, but modeling it. I've watched him send out their best leaders, people of influence, dedicating time to raising up leaders, sending out financial resources, and not just doing it reluctantly, but willingly with an open hand. I think ultimately because they believe that's just how the kingdom works. You're to release what God has given you to bless the kingdom. And so I think they've shaped me mostly as a church planter in that they've allowed me to inherit not just a model for multiplication, but a culture of multiplication, because ultimately the people that are going to be sent out with us have already seen that culture of multiplication modeled for them.
I think when people think about Matthias's Lot, they probably think about like, man, that's that church that meets on Wednesday night, or it's the church that, a ton of the college students go to. But my hope is that when people think about Matthias, they would think about a church that has really just submitted to the leading of the Holy Spirit, that has been faithful to trust God in all things. And then through that, the Lord has just continued to bless their faithfulness.
I hope that what's happened in these first 2 decades is just a starting point. I have so much more to grow in. I believe what's happened thus far is just the beginning of learning and growing and submitting. And so we really believe that that these lessons learned, these people sent, these churches that have been planted, we pray is just the start. I hope and I pray that our region sees so many more churches that are city. St. Charles sees so many more churches that are planted, including and in part from Matthias' lot.